It kind of, in a way, and this is going thinking it sounded ridiculous thinking it, but as I'm about to say it, it sounds even more ridiculous because Stephanos is not Spock and Diana is not Captain Kirk, but kind of how Captain Kirk had this crazy maverick way of doing things that was often illogical, but Spock would find out, sometimes, that's the most logical course because as illogical as Kirk could be in certain situations, Kirk managed to come out on top, whether either despite of or because of his brazen approach towards things. So that kind of gave me a nice little, hey, science fiction, you crazy bastard, I'm in, all right. So I'm getting reeled in. I got warning flags going off. I'm getting reeled in, though. And this is also, there were Altera filler logs, and there were Altera logs in the Aurora that dealt with romance or potential romance or employees flirting. But the thing that Tom did, the thing that the Subnautica writer did that was sublime, was he worked in in-game lore and tech, and not just in-game, but literally in-game that the player has access to. And there's other PDA logs for Below Zero that bring up racing penguins, racing spy penguins. It's two people having a little ha-ha, we're socializing, but they're discussing spy penguins, and that's something that you get in the game. So that's a good example. An example in Subnautica would be, I believe it's Chief Technical Officer Yu in Berkeley, and a propulsion cannon, actually a repulsion cannons, somebody could have got hurt. It was a funny little PDA, but it talked about this propulsion cannon, and the player's like, that propulsion cannon sounds cool, whatever it does. I want to point it at some reapers and, push buttons is cool. And then when the player does come across the propulsion cannon, it's like, hey, it's that thing. I read about that. That's that thing. Hey, I get to do that thing, and it's cool. It's revealing something and creating a thread, and then tying it up. It's like, it's satisfying. No one likes a problem, but when a problem comes up and you solve that problem, there comes a sense of satisfaction with solving that problem. And the difficulty of the problem, there's a certain balance between how difficult the problem is to solve that equates to how satisfying it is. And you can have a problem that's so hard to solve it's not worth the amount of satisfaction. A problem so dangerous is like, you solve this problem or you don't survive. But certain optional problems can provide varying amounts of satisfaction. But when you create issues that do not offer any amount of satisfaction to solve, that's creating fluff and filler. That's when you're just creating threads that are like, oh, okay, well, where does this go? It doesn't go anywhere. It's not really a dead end. It just loops back to where I was. It's like, oh, okay. Then, then the story branches off in another direction. You're like, oh, I'll keep that in mind. That'll amount to something, right? But then, that never amounts to nothing. So many things are brought up and injected. So many elements are introduced that don't pay off. They don't strengthen existing story elements, and they don't propel or create the story. They don't propel the story in any new or interesting directions. They don't question or provide context to what's happening. Maybe what the character, maybe the main character's ideology is flawed, and they have to discover that before they can actually improve. Maybe the villain has been besting them in their past couple encounters, and this is, what's happening. The hero's been winning up until this point, but suddenly he's falling behind. The hero's going to have to find out, hey, I'm doing stuff wrong. I'm doing things improperly. The bad guy, who's supposed to be, he's doing things the wrong way. He's getting ahead of me. I need to figure out where am I slacking. What's the baggage on my end? What's holding me back? And then the character has the revelation. They're in the abyss. They've got the rebirth, death and rebirth. They have the atonement. They better themselves. They drop their baggage. They accept responsibility. They're raised to the challenge, and boom, they're given the reward, the gift of the goddess. They become a better person. I went over this in a previous video series, the hero's journey. That's the difference between bad and good storytelling. And at this point, the rest of these PDA logs, there's going to be filler, and it's not filler that's world building. It's not filler that's contextual. It's not filler it's filler fills up space, but not necessarily with anything meaningful. It can actually be spam, because negative space can be used to help draw attention to something in a composition. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother video, and I'm not trying to get too far off of, hey, this is just supposed to be me playing these PDA logs. These PDA logs are, this is not a red herring. This is a flag. The story, the writing, even with me able to sincerely point out and notice, it's like, hey, this is a different writer. I like their writing. They seem to try hard. They seem to have more experience. I'm not sure how much experience they have in science fiction, but they seem to have a bit more experience writing in general. Jill Murray, or whoever's been writing for the bulk of the game, Sam and Robin, and the main characters, Alan. I'm not sure who's writing Alan. Alan's decent in certain points, but Jill Murray seems to be the much more casual, rank amateurish, writer. Maybe that style works for different franchises and different genres in different stories with different contexts, but the combination that was put together for Below Zero, it's remarkably stark contrast. It's immersion breaking. Oof. Oh, all right. The fifth PDA entry, and this could be the fourth one, I'm not sure. It's Glowing Picnic from Yasmin. My notes for this seems like total filler, and that's pretty much what it is. It doesn't really. It's just something to chew on. It's not really nutritious. I can't really be too critical of this PDA, but if problems are stone and the game is water, the more problems you have, the more stones there are. The bigger the problem, the bigger the stone. A little problem is a pebble, a normal problem is a rock, and a big problem is a boulder. And the game is X amount of volume of water. And when you start dropping those stones into the water, the stones displace the water. And the more problems and the bigger those problems are, the less of a game you end up with. And this is just another stone, another little. If there were less stones, if there weren't so many problems, I wouldn't have anything to say about this PDA. But there's so much wrong with so many different aspects of the game. This is just is like with Subnautica, and I have done that, and I will be doing it more. I will be pointing out the flaws in Subnautica, and I do. But it's like, man, with Subnautica, I'm like, nobody's perfect, right? You look at the most successful relationships, marriages for like 50, 60 years. Ask either one of those people to say something about their spouse that they don't like. They'll go on for hours about things that their spouse does that aggravates the hell out of them. But it's because they accept those things. It's like, but you know what? I love his stubborn ass anyway, or I love her stubborn ass anyway. So, man, I need some Mo coffee, and I'm going to switch into the next video